Welcome to Marvel Champions Podcast, a podcast about Marvel Champions the card game. I am your host, Scott, and with me as always, my co-host, Ryan.
Yeah, Scott, it's feeling a little bit too samey lately. I mean, it's almost like it's a standard podcast.
Oh, you think we're just kind of the same standard thing, game in, week out?
Yeah, I think we need to maybe bump it up instead of like a standard 1 or 2. Maybe we should move on to a 3.
So what you're saying is third time might be the charm?
Third time might be the charm. Find out on this week's episode of Marvel Champion. That's right, folks. We're talking about Standard 3 that came out with the Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it in a previous box. This box is almost like a X-Men core box. You could technically pick up this box and have it be standalone, minus counters and dials and such, but from a game perspective, you pretty much have everything you need to play.
That is true. And, I mean, with things are nowadays, you can just use pennies for counters and such.
Right.
Have you ever seen those little tokens? They're called, like, penny tokens. They're basically
the burger tokens.
Yeah, you basically
they're pretty popular.
pennies.
Yeah.
They're pretty nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk about some Standard 3, and then I think I have something at the end for you that might rattle your cage. It's not going to rattle your cage, but it'll make you think.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. All right, Ryan, Standard 3, do you think, I guess let's take one step back. From going from Standard 1 to Standard 2, do you think like that was a necessary thing? Do you feel like it added a lot of difficulty bump? Did you play a lot of Standard 2? What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't remember Standard 2 all that well because we don't play with it ever. I think what it does is it just does the same thing but a little bit more mean. So
You're talking about Standard 2?
Standard 2, yes. So yeah, it's got the unique thing about it is it comes with an environment and it's a permanent setup. So it always is out and it has basically steady, gives the villain steady. And then all the other cards are very similar to the normal standard, but with a little bit more meanness to it. Except for Shadows of the Past. It's the same card.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that steady, right?
Yep.
Seeing, I'm not a huge fan of steady. Like, I definitely think there's times and scenarios that it's very warranted. But as a constant, always there thing on either side, I find it that it really hinders some characters and what they want to do and function.
Yeah, it definitely disrupts the flow of the game once the villain has steady. But I mean, it makes sense. You gotta have something to counteract the powerfulness of status cards. So, but this just guarantees that it's just going to be a little bit harder for most heroes.
I will say I haven't played, like you said, I haven't played much with Standard 2 or Expert 2, but I've got to give it some credit on the art. The art on those Standard 2 cards or Expert 2, Standard 2, the art's pretty good.
It looks like majority of it is from comics too, so pretty solid choice.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done Expert 2, but looking at the cards, they're nasty.
Yeah, they're no fun. So, where do you think we needed a Standard 3?
Did we need it? No. But is it a nice change of pace to the standard process? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. You know, there are those players out there that no matter what they do, they always get Shadow of the Past turn 1 or every game. But I felt for us, we would get it, but what do you think? 60-40? 70-30?
I would say at least I came in to a game expecting for it to flip. But it was possible that it didn't, depending on how things went.
No, I'm talking standard one, like getting Shadow of the Past. Shadow of the Past.
Oh.
We would probably not get that.
Yeah, I would say you're about right.
60% of the time. So about half our games we probably wouldn't see our Nemesis come out.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes... And what we would do, too, if we had the capability, is we would find it and get rid of it with, like... Global Logistics, I think it is, for Justice, where you can look at some cards and discard some.
Is it Silk and Protection?
Silk and Protection. Yeah.
Fetch and Treachery and just get rid of it. Yeah, that one's nice.
Yeah, we would often just toss it. So, but Standard 3 prevents that, which I think is nice.
All right, so now let's transition over to Standard 3. Right, that one. I liked the direction they went with it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think playing it for several scenarios now, it feels consistent. You're very likely going to basically trigger Shadows of the Past with Pursued by the Past. That's the environment that's in play.
Right. Yeah, so that's like the big difference, right? You got environment, you're adding tokens to it. It's 3 more than the player count. You're more than likely gonna see it.
Yeah.
You're gonna interact with your Nemesis minion with this, and I like that. I think overall, as a player that's played for this long, I think sometimes if you don't see those Nemesis characters and minions, they just kind of sit out of play, right?
Yeah, they just sit. And often it makes it a little easier, but this kind of adds in that, hey, this is going to happen. Who knows when, but just know that it's coming.
Right. And I guess the name kind of says that too, right? Pursued by the Past. So you're always in that constant pursuit of them chasing you.
Yeah. And I'd say overall, the cards have a lot of similar effects as Standard 2 or Standard 1 specifically, but just with the added thing of place a pursuit counter on Pursued by the Past.
Right. The villain schemes, the villain attacks, you place a counter pretty much on all of them. Place a counter, discard an upgrade, so cut off guard. I think the biggest difference is, I think there's 2 cards I want to point out, which when we'd get them, it did change the game a little bit from a Standard 1 game. The Evil Alliance is like the gang up replacement. So it says each Nemesis minion in play activates against you. If no minions activated this way, place 3 pursuit counters on Pursued by the Past.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a couple on there, it's like a guaranteed it's going to pop with that one.
Yep.
And if you don't have any, that one's going to add pretty much everything you need to get it in the next card you encounter within this set. You're going to get it.
Yep.
But the wording on that one's interesting because it says each Nemesis minion in play. So if you did happen to have both of the Nemesis in play, they would both attack you, right?
Yeah, for 2 players, yep. I think it's going to be more realistic in a 3 or 4 player game, but I like that it knows that it's probably not going to hit very often, so it throws those 3 pursuit counters on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. And then the second one is that drawing nearer. So the standard encounter set does not have an obligation. Standard 3 does introduce an obligation. And I felt like this is one you could almost forget about for a turn or 2, and then you had to make sure you dealt with it.
Yeah, every time we got it, we were like, well, I guess this means we'll be flipping down very soon.
Yeah, so pretty much after your turn starts, you place a pursuit counter on there. Oh, no, sorry. You discard the top card of your deck, and then for each resource icon on there, you put a counter on. So more than likely, it's going to be 1. Could be a 2. I guess there's very rare heroes that could be a 3. But then all 3 go action. You discard an identity-specific card from your hand, and you get to discard the card.
So with this card, we encountered a scenario that I want to bring up. we played a game where I had Drawing Near the Obligation, and you were first player. So my turn technically did not start to activate the force response, but I was already an alter ego, so I called for an action and discarded it. Do you think that was a legal play?
Let's ask the jury here. After deliberation, the jury's come back that is a legal play.
Good. I mean, I assumed it was because called for an action. I was already, all the conditions were met, and my turn hadn't started, so I was able to avoid that one.
I think you, if it was worded in when the player phase begins, then you obviously couldn't. But because it's your turn, and each turn is started separately, like the phase starts, but it's the first player's turn, and you go in clockwise order, unless you're Cyclops.
That's true. Go Cyclops. Yeah, so I thought that was a nice little change in cards for this standard set. Different feeling, and overall, I think I liked it. I don't know if it replaces Standard 1, but it is a cool, different take on the whole standard encounter set, and it creates a different feeling for a game. So it might be nice to use it once in a while.
Yeah, I liked that it took it up just like 1 or 2 notches. It wasn't a huge bump. It wasn't a big increase. It wasn't like overly hard. It pretty much kept the core mechanic of the standard set, but just made it to where you're more than likely going to see your nemesis at some point in the game. It wasn't a huge jump in difficulty and like different rules you had to follow. It was very simplistic, and it was, to me, I really like it. I feel if you're a player that's been playing for a long time, Standard 1, like you mentioned early on, feels a little samey. Maybe some scenarios start to feel a little easy. This is one easy thing to put in to take it up just a little bit.
Yeah. It had some good things with it. I do think I would play this one a lot more than Standard 2, because one thing is I haven't played Standard 2 in a very long time, and I just don't really have a desire to. But this one is different. I think that's the difference is, for me, Standard 2 just made things harder, where Standard 1 changes the mechanisms of the game.
Even Standard 3?
The Standard 3. It changes it slightly, but it's enough to create different interactions. In a way, it makes it more complicated, even though it really isn't that complicated.
Yeah. All right, so I got a few questions for you.
Okay.
I've been playing, in most of my games recently, I've been playing Standard 3. It's kind of become my new standard, I would say. You're going into a new campaign. Do you play through the campaign first time, Standard 3, Standard 1?
In a way, it would probably depend on who the hero is.
Okay. Right. Good non-answer.
Well, the reason why is not all Nemesis sets are created equal. And there are some that are a lot more rough than others. It's like, for example, if I wanted to go through as Jean Grey, Phoenix, I don't know if I would want Standard 3 for a campaign.
That's true. All right. Just a random pickup scenario. Standard
Absolutely.
1, Standard 3.
I would do Standard 3. It would be a choice. It would be a toss-up. I'd be like, hey, you want to do Standard 3 this time or no?
Basically. All right. I got one more for you.
Right.
You're introducing the game to a new player. Do you go Standard 1, Standard 3?
I would just do Standard 1.
Okay.
And it's simply because you have to explain Pursued by the Past and what you're doing with that. I mean, I guess you could just do it for them, but it'd just be simpler if it's just draw cards.
I would agree. And all my answers match with yours. So
okay, so you're a non-answer on that one question too?
Yeah, no, I'm not. What he said. Yeah. So.
Well, I have a question for you, sir.
All right, let's hear it.
Now that we have Standard 3, we didn't get an Expert 3. So question 1, do you think they'll come out with a Expert 3 that plays off Standard 3 type things?
I definitely think they could do it. I mean, because really, you're just going to have, in my opinion, you'd have the Expert 1 and some tweaking of it with a counter, right?
I think that's what Expert...
I think it would be easy for them to do because they could always just tack on those 3 cards and to the back of a random pack or something. Will they though? Probably not, because it's you have to ask yourself from an FFG packaging and how's it going to fit inside of something, and their thing is they want people to be able to just kind of grab the game and go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm torn. I don't think logistically it's a feasible thing, but I definitely think it's something they could do.
Yeah, I don't... Could they? Absolutely. I don't know if they will. I honestly haven't heard much chatter about Expert 2, like whether it's like too hard, too easy. I'm sure there's some like, oh, it's too easy. I'm so good at this game. Easy mode.
So the other thing that I would say is you could always just mix and match, right? I mean, that is the selling point of the game, and a lot of people's perspective is, play it however you want to play it. You can be that guy.
Now, here's a question, not related to my main line of questions, so tangent here. Could you play, let's say you play a scenario, and it gives you the option of choosing a encounter set of your choice. Can you choose one of the standards to be an encounter set?
Most of them say that you need the standard, and then it'll give you 2 others as like an optional, and it'll say like 2 other modulars, and they suggest or recommend 2.
So
I guess you could.
So basically, what I'm saying is, if you were able to put in standard, say 3 as the actual like standard set that goes into it, and then do like say standard 1 or standard 2 as your choice encounter set, so you're getting lots of Shadow of the Past interaction.
I mean, you could. I mean, heck, you might as well just take out that extra Shadow of the Past from standard 2 and shove it in at that point.
I mean, heck, if you could get all 3 of these in, oh geez, all 3 standards in a scenario, that would be... Maybe that's the challenge for the week. Listeners, play a scenario with all the standard sets.
That's right. Play the hood and do all the standards.
Oh gosh.
On Expert.
Oh geez.
With Phoenix.
I don't know about that one. Maybe just do the standards. There'll be a lot of interactions. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
It might be very punishing. Okay. Back to my main line of questions. Here we go. So, Expert 3, potential. Not sure if it would ever happen. But what about a Standard 4? Do you think they'll continue to move on and do a Standard 4, then a 5, then a 6? And will they have different focuses? Will it still involve Shadows of the Past? Or go completely different? What are your thoughts?
I think, unfortunately, it would be a community-driven thing, right? It would be a feedback, a staleness maybe that creeps in. But I don't. Current time, I don't see why you would need one.
I almost see it happening with whatever the new series of boxes are going to be. Like, we had Avengers, which had Standard 1, and then Standard 2 just kind of came in. But, like, Standard 3 is the X-Men wave. So maybe their Standard 4 will be in the
Fantastic Four wave.
Fantastic Four or Defenders or whatever series of they're going to do next.
But what do? Do you just get it to where it's an environment that gives Stalwart?
Well, that'd be an easy way. Honestly, I hope they take things totally different. Maybe, I guess, like, really thinking about it, Standard is more like the Nemesis encounter set, even though it's only one card for Standard 1 and 2. And then Standard 3 really revolves around that Nemesis. So I would assume they would have to have something involving the Nemesis for Standard 4.
Right. I mean, that's one of the key elements of the Standard, is that's how you get that Nemesis minion out. And all
Maybe
those other
make
cards put in.
Make it like attachment focus. Like some cards allow you to get out the Nemesis, and then there's a lot of attachments that can go onto them. Like beef up the Nemesis.
Now you're just talking crazy, Ryan.
I'm just talking real crazy.
Yeah, see, I don't see, in current state of the game, I don't see where the need is. And to your point, I think it would be a little while, because you just got Standard 3, and then you can always default back to Standard 1, or default back to Standard 2.
Who knows? Maybe they will. But maybe they finally... Maybe Standard 3 is what they wanted to do for Standard 2, but they didn't, and so they had to come out with Standard 3.
All right, I as we were talking, I got a thing. The only other way I could see them doing it is Standard 3, you're adding tokens, right? At Standard 4, you could have a set amount of tokens on, and then you're removing it, so it's a countdown clock.
So it's basically just reversing it.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there was like... There's Pursued by the Past. I wonder if you could do like a way like if they're breaking out of prison in a way.
Just go with Tickled. Tickled by the Past.
Tickled by the Past?
Yep.
I like that one. Let's do
Real
that.
ominous.
But yeah, I mean, maybe you can do counters, and I would say make it, maybe there's like an environment that, like, if you do something, remove a counter. I don't know if that means like when you defeat a minion, remove a counter. When you defeat a side scheme, remove a counter or whatever. And it, as you play the game, it's going to happen. But I still feel like that's kind of the same thing as Standard 3, just in a different mechanism.
It's true. See, Ryan, you got to find that need, and there's just not a need right now.
We'll have to figure it out.
All right. Any other Standard 3 comments, takeaways?
I think I'm good, but I think it's a good addition.
My only final comment is I always found the wording on a lot of the cards just kind of silly. It's like place one pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Past. Then if there's any counters, do something. Well, it's like I just put one on, so there's always going to be a token. But I guess it could activate and flip it, and then you wouldn't resolve the second half of the second sentence or whatever.
Yeah, I had the same thought until it actually happened to me, where I placed one and it flipped and then flipped back, and then there was no counters on it, so it didn't surge or whatever.
Yeah, that would be the only other thing with this one, is there's a little bit of forced response, timing, and handling and worrying about. Make sure you're kind of doing the steps correctly and reading the card.
You definitely have to read the card on that one.
Yeah. Because I remember when I first played it, I was like, when do I take the tokens off?
Yep. It took a second on the first time to read it and make sure the interactions made sense. But after that, it's been fairly simple.
And then I have one other random comment. The arts on these, I like them. But could you imagine looking at Evil Alliance and do you see who's on that card?
I do.
Who is it?
I see Magneto and creepy Juggernaut.
Creepy Juggernaut. Could you imagine him just standing in the corner of the room, just creeping like that in the shadows?
He is for
scary.
sure creeping. I did not notice him until you asked me, and then when I looked at it, I saw him. I was like, "Oof, he is really just chilling."
Yeah, he's just kind of creeping out in the corner. So if you don't believe us and you haven't looked at Evil Alliance close. Go take a look. Juggernaut's just kind of creeping over there in the corner.
Yeah, Kane is just kind of creeping.
Jesus.
I will say, Standard 3 art does bring up a little bit of a sore spot that I would have loved to see a Omega Red villain.
Oh, you're talking about like a full villain, not just a nemesis?
Correct. I would love to have seen an Omega Red villain.
Okay. Well, maybe if they've got some free time, they can just whip you one up around.
Ah, nice play on words. Whip. Omega
Yeah,
Red.
you like that? Yeah.
His little whips.
Yeah. Standard 3. I think it's a win. I think overall for the game as a whole, I definitely see it as a big win.
Yeah. I've not looked at the community, but I would guess that most are probably like, yeah, good on them.
Yeah. And that's another thing about this game I love is play it the way you want it. You want to be a standard 1 player, be a standard 1 player. If you're expert or nothing, then be an expert or nothing person.
And if you're a real player, you just put them all together as one and call it the standard.
That's right. And play as Phoenix.
And play as Phoenix. Or better yet, just put all the Shadows of the Past from the other two and add it to Standard 3.
Standard 3, right. And then if you draw that, it just puts on like whatever number of players and plus 3 tokens on. So it's just
Auto.
instant. Yeah.
Gosh, that'd be like playing Ronin. Just torture.
Yep. That'd
Just
be
kidding.
bad.
Just kidding, Ronin. We don't hate you.
That's
You
right.
just strongly disliked some of your games that we played. But I do think he has gotten better.
Yeah, definitely more doable.
Yep.
All right, well, we want to hear your feedback on Standard 3. Was it a win for you? Was it something you're going to pass on? Stick to Standard 2, Standard 1, Expert 1, Expert 2? Let us know. We would love to hear from the community about it. And you can reach out to us at marvelchampionspod@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening. And if you want to go from a chump to a champ, listen to the Marvel Champions podcast. Thanks.
Watch out for the past.